Hi, and welcome to this week's Hopeful Conversations. I am Vicky Montague, and today I am joined by Ivana. And we have kind of crossed paths in the last couple of years, I guess, touched paths and sort of seen each other a lot and kind of not actually sat and had a proper conversation. And we're both currently on the holistic health course with Ian and Rachel, and you will have heard from them previously in the podcast. And there was something about Ivana that I've always been kind of drawn to, I guess. And I know that she's got a really hopeful story to tell. She's the mother of twins and a girl, I believe, twin boys and a girl.
Yes.
And I know a lot of your journey, I guess, started with the birth of the twins. So I guess I'm just going to hand straight over to you to tell us about your journey, your struggles with health, and kind of, what you've seen about that, and what conditions, and yeah, just to let everybody know what's been going on.
Cool. Oh, thank you, Vicky. That's lovely. It's so nice to be able to, be able to share my story, because I think it is a story of hope. And so, yeah, I am a mum of three children. I've got a daughter who's 12 and a half now, and I've got twin boys who are 9 now. I can't quite believe they're growing up very fast. So I think my story starts probably a long time ago. Ever since I've, dreamt about being a mum. At the same time, I was had this fear in me of falling pregnant with twins. I mean, I have no idea what that was all about,
Oh no!
but it was. I had this massive fear about falling pregnant with twins. So I'll never forget first time. Falling pregnant with my daughter and going for an early scan, because I was quite nervous. I was becoming mum later, a little bit later in life. I don't remember how old I was at the time. She's 12 and a half and I'm 47 now. So yeah, I was around over 30, 30, 35 when I fell pregnant. So I was desperately wanting to be a mum, but at the same time, I was petrified of having twins. So we went for an early scan, and sonographer asked, please tell me it's not twins. And she was like, yeah, it's okay, it's just one. Like, phew. And the same thing happened with the second pregnancy. We kind of went for an early scan and said to sonographer, please tell me it's only one. And she just went a bit quiet. I was like, oh gosh, here we go. Something must have gone wrong. And I just thought, look, Ivana, you've got a daughter, fantastic. And if this has gone wrong, it's gone wrong. And this poor woman was trying to probably figure out how does she make this into good news. And said, okay, I'm just having to do some measuring up, and just be with you in a second. And then she goes, okay, yeah, you're definitely pregnant. I was just checking there's not more than 2 heartbeats. So I think that was the moment where I totally, undoubtedly now, with what I know, went into massive shock, because oh my goodness, how on earth am I meant to do this? This is all my fears have come true, kind
What's
of
the
thing.
history of twins in your family? Is that why you thought you might have them, or?
Yeah, well, so that's funny that there hasn't been any big history around it at all, except a story that vaguely remembered that my mum told me when I was even quite young, that she had a pregnancy between me and my sister very soon after me, that she had to abort, and she mentioned I kind of vaguely remember she said that there might have been twins. So it's really strange. So something there must have kind of occurred, and I don't know. I don't know why it was even playing out in my mind. Bizarre. And I've met so many people who said, oh, I'd love to have twins. I said, you're crazy.
It was one of my fears as well, I have to say. I would have been with you there.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so it's been interesting. So because as a family, we're pretty much on our own. My family was in Croatia, and my parents were not really well themselves, so it wasn't an option to get much support. And my husband's parents were elderly. this is the trouble having children a bit later in life, right? So there wasn't really a support that we had. So we knew, given that I had to have an emergency C-section with my daughter, that we needed to get some support in place with having twins. And we did. We were very pragmatic. We had some savings, and I worked. We both had careers. Had some money stashed away. I thought, this is the time to spend this money, because we know it's not going to be easy. It almost killed us off after having Anna first time around. So yeah, anyway, so we got some help, and it was brilliant. My sister also came over for a while, and we sort of started, and then we even got a nanny for first year. We knew that we'll need support, and we were really good about just getting on and doing that. And then after first year of nanny, we went solo.
Wow.
I went solo. My daughter was just starting the primary school. And I thought it was a really good idea, because it's not enough just to be a mum, to also be a treasurer for PTA at the time.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, seriously, what do we do this to us? It's crazy. It's crazy thinking, right? But I mean, and it isn't in so many ways, because we want to keep up the life that we have had, I think, and in so many ways. So with all of that, I mean, surprise, surprise, twins were approaching. So they were just over 2, and I was approaching my 40th birthday at the time. And I was just exhausted. I was exhausted. I was so burnt out. And a couple of sort of things happened that shook me up a little bit and put me in a state of, I think, shock, really, and massive fear that, oh my gosh, can I do this? Like, I'm so exhausted. And then it kind of went into my head, and worrying, and getting really insecure about it, about my abilities, worrying about my kids. All my senses got really heightened. So most ordinary things I started to get really nervous about, going out and about, their safety, because they were now moving. I couldn't just, join my friends who had, 2 children in a park, or that wasn't a possibility, because they would just walk in opposite directions. So bit by bit, I think what happened, I got isolated, and I wasn't really aware of that, because I couldn't keep up with friends, who had different setup, with the children. They would have 2, even 3 kids, but at different ages, and I just struggled. And I wasn't very good to say, guys, I can't do this. I thought I needed to show I'm much stronger than I was. So I was embarrassed, really embarrassed about that. So yeah, I was hiding, basically. And then my world got smaller and smaller, and then it got harder and harder to say anything, because I would, on my journey to school, to my daughter, you'd put up your, smiles, and you'd put up your pretenses, and not be necessarily always honest. So people had no idea. My friends had no idea that how much I really struggled. And then through that struggle, I think there was a moment where I just collapsed. One morning was over and out kind of moment, and I couldn't get out of bed. I had literally no energy in my body. I was so weak. And I said to my husband, "You're just going to have to take over. I can't. I just can't move." And he was amazing. He just took over, in the sense that he did. The men are really good at doing practical things. So he kind of went into that practical mode, sorting out the necessary, calling up on them to say, can we have some extra hours, be in this situation. So he dealt with it really wonderfully in that sense. But what he didn't know at the time, and how to help me, he didn't know how to connect to me, and he was doing the best he could, but I needed somebody. Now that I know that now, obviously I didn't know at the time, is that I need somebody to look at me and said, it's okay, you just kind of need a rest. Yeah. That's all it was. You're knackered. Let's just take the kids off your hand. completely, you and your husband just do something that just going to be nourishing. So this is what I know of it now, but at the time, of course, I didn't. And the whole sort of story went into following, you go to your GP, and there's a sign of like, okay, well, why don't you take some antidepressants to help you, i.e. you're not coping, this is not good enough, you need to do better. That was the message, like, rather than actually, you just need to rest, sort of things. So we did that. And I wasn't comfortable taking antidepressant. And I don't say that is a right or wrong thing at all. Everybody's had to decide for themselves, really important. But for me, somebody who has gone through experience of my mum struggling in her life with anxiety and anxiousness and all of sort of things like that, and being on depressants on and off and all her life, that something scared me in itself, because she never really got better on that. So I couldn't go there. So I needed to try something different. So said thank you, but no thank you. And then I found some great therapists who tried to help, because I was in a really acute situation there. Like, it was so acute and so deep, like at the time, that I need to find somebody who can just hold my hand slowly at the time. And I had an amazing therapist. She was wonderful, and to get me through an acute period of time, until I need to hear something else and learn something else. And she wasn't able to offer me that. And it was interesting, because I had a sense of having to say, I think this is enough, because I felt like she kept me in that perpetual kind of, there was a ceiling to which she could help me. And it felt, there was a sense of like, I've been held back. Like, you're going to have to do this for a lot longer. I surely can't leave now, kind of business. And then that was utterly innocent. I mean, I totally see that now, but at the time it was like, oh my gosh, I have to sack my therapist, kind of thing, which was, you had to find the strength to do that. But this point already, I bumped into a friend of mine who just was completing a year of coaching course around the principles. And I don't know how much you share in your podcast, this understanding around how human mind works, and how our reality comes about and all of that. When I bumped into him in my worst, crawling pretty much to deliver my daughter to gymnastics class, and just, you could see on my face, I was tired. I was just like, my shoulders are kind of hunched, and I just wanted to hide, because I didn't feel myself at all. He had which audacity to say that there was nothing wrong with me, and it didn't have to be like that. And wow. I thought, well, you are a crazy man, for starters. I mean, look at me, I'm literally in bits. When you see somebody that unwell, you can tell that there's not something right. And and I didn't hide from him, which I did often, on my school trips, deliver my daughter to school. People didn't know what was going on for me, because I was too embarrassed to even show it, because that made me seem weak. Somebody might even take my children away. Like, I mean, there's so much, fearful, horrible, fearful thinking. And so he said that, and I was like, you're crazy. But there's something really, I was like, you're the first person that had courage to even mention something like that to me. What's that about, kind of thing. And he was holding like a bi-weekly meetup group at my local town. And I eventually kind of braved out and went to see him, and sat in the back, kind of, don't talk to me, because I can't hold this together at all. And I started to hear something that really resonated, and resonated in a way that it feels like, well, I know this. I know this. He's talking about that our reality comes from thoughts, not from externally, from circumstances or situations. And I thought, because sometimes, you drive and, they're going to want to be cross at the drivers, coming at you. And the other times you would just, nothing can touch you kind of thing. What's that about? Or with my children. So I recognized. So there was something that resonated, and it started to really help for me to see where my reality comes from. And because I have at that point completely lost the sense of where my reality comes from. I thought, of course, I've got twins, they're young, I haven't looked after myself. There's so many things that look like that. My whole overall chaos in my head and overwhelm and tiredness came purely from being a mum. Yeah. So that was interesting. And then, of course, through that perpetual amount of energy used to churn all of that in my head, there was no energy left for my body, which I see now. So my body started to suffer. Tension in my body, my back in absolute bits, literally no energy in my body. My muscles, I couldn't move. I was ached all the time. I mean, all the time ached. Then I was thinking, gosh, I thought we ate well, in terms of fairly nourishing foods and mostly home cooked. And, so then I thought, okay, well, maybe look for some, let's go speak to somebody who knows about foods and supplements and stuff like that. So even then, with that was fascinating, because it was like, oh, these foods you have to eat and these foods you must avoid. Again, it was like, you are doing yourself damage if you eat these foods. It's gonna be good if you just eat these foods. But again, there was this sense of like, oh, I'm doing so many things wrong. So many things wrong again, like, so there was a lot more fear around that started to build up. I must kind of eat better, because if I don't, I'm going to be sick and this is not going to help me recover and blah, blah, blah. And then exercise, you must move. You must be doing runs or this.
Last thing
I was so exhausted. I couldn't get barely out of bed, let alone go for a run or do any exercise. I couldn't move barely, like literally couldn't move. So all of that was extra things that seemingly very helpful. And yes, they will be helpful, but if they come from a right place. So at some point what happened, I think, is I had to stop. I had to stop to listen for advice. I had to stop to go to somebody and tell me what to do. I realized I had to, go with what I know. And that all of these additional things were just adding on to my chaos and my not being well. And that I will have to find my own way through this. And over years, I've had huge interest into nutrition. I had huge interest into mental and well-being because of my parents' situation and all of that. So I knew lots. I knew lots what's good for me, what's not good for me. But why wasn't I doing it? Why was I not able to do it? It wasn't even like you think you'd be able to do it. What is it? What's going on? Until I started learning a little bit more about, my mind, how the impact of that, or how perpetual worrying and overthinking uses up so much energy that, of course, then your body is lacking, because that's where the focus is, to use it up. So then I knew I had to. That was my starting point. So look at, okay, well, let's go with that. That's where it is for a minute, and understand a bit more about that, and do calm my mind the best I can, so I can start seeing things a bit more clearly. And that was my focus. And I did what occurred to me. I did often Google just randomly on YouTube some meditations that were really helpful to me. It would be the worst thing ever for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, there's no prescription. It had to be what I needed to do, and everybody has that within themselves, I learn now. So I did lots of that. So that would kind of give me enough bit of a boost to get through a few bits that I do in a day. And then I come lie down, and then, and bit a bit, I started to understand how mind and body connection works. And I could start noticing that my mind, as my mind was calming down, that my body is starting to have a bit of energy. Then I also started to see that the movement, it didn't have to be going for a run.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be doing weights. I came across most amazing man who as a personal trainer just knew how to meet me where I am. He knew to call my exercise stretching.
Yeah.
Until very recently, for the last 3 years. And we laugh about it now because it didn't matter. He knew to listen to what I needed to, so he was probably the first person that I trusted with myself and trusted to show up just the way I am. And I didn't worry how I showed up. And he certainly didn't worry. I had also experiences of doing Pilates with somebody who ended up having to tell me, I don't know what else to do for you. I can't help you. I'm like, whoa, okay. So this is touching you because you feel like as a failure because you can't help me. Wow. Okay. Well, this is interesting. So I was like, okay, well, this is not a good place to be. So it's fascinating to see, like there was such a journey of, road going, all over the place of, finding that right road for me. Yeah. And then in terms of nutrition and stuff, again, I got to sort of see how much the fear from not eating something and not eating it was making me more sick than actually really enjoying a piece of nice cake that somebody brought and for me, or just enjoyed for what it is. The joy that it looked like it brought me in that moment was so much more nourishing than actually not eating it and because you're scared of. So it was really interesting, all of that. So yeah, so bit by bit, and probably now I'm 47. I think first 3 or 4 years were tough because I was really quite sick. I was sick, and and slowly healing, started to happen. And probably over the last 3 years, much different. And probably most of the last 6 months, something hugely shifted for me. And the world looks very different, but in a way that I have got to learn a lot about myself and how my mind and body connects, and that what is available beyond that to guide me to do. And I think that's been mind-blowing, and then coming across most amazing people like Vicky. So that's my story.
It's just so beautiful, because the thing that I hear most clearly out of that is that at one point in the depths of struggle, somebody recognized something in you beyond the physical, your physical body, beyond how you were presenting. Saw something in you that you weren't broken, and there wasn't anything to be fixed, that there was something whole about you. And I love how you describe, like, you almost sort of, it's almost like that was the sort of fire then, or the spark that got ignited. And just whether you knew it consciously or not, just that knowing. And I think, the purpose of this podcast is to do exactly that, like to get people to consider, even for a moment, can you consider that there's nothing wrong with you, that we were born 100% whole, and that's not gone anywhere. It's just been covered over by layers of horse manure.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And,
Nicely put.
and I love, from that sort of spark being ignited,
Yeah.
you obviously then went out in the world and you did what we all do, which is, okay, what, there's still something wrong. I feel like there's something wrong. What can I do to help myself? I don't want medications or look at nutritions. And I've, had a very similar journey of going and trying to find a way and listening to experts and doing what they suggested and finding relief for a period of time and then finding that it wasn't sustainable.
Yes.
But that there's that something within all of us that we can turn back into, that is our own guidance, that we don't need an expert to tell us what we need, that we actually know what we need. And when we stop listening to other people, we can hear what it is that we need. And it might be to go to an expert. It might be to go and take medication. It might be to run it, whatever it might be. But it's not, like you said at one point, it's not a prescription from someone else.
No, and when you meet that, if it is an expert to be seen, when you meet that expert, you will have a sense, is this right for me or not? And we are very good at overriding that because we are in front of an expert, supposedly. And we see that, like, I knew when I went to see a doctor and they prescribed the antidepressant, that was not going to be good for me. I have members of extended family said, why wouldn't you take that kind of, because an expert is saying, and there could have been arguments around that and all sorts. When I knew this was not going to be helpful to me, and there will be many others this was exactly the right thing.
Yes.
So is that sense of our knowing, when you sort of said, we've got everything we need, but the thing is, because what we think we have and we are only is our body and our mind. That's what we think we are. That's it. So of course, when we're experiencing mental turmoil, that must be broken. Yeah. When we experience our body aching and not moving in the way that is designed to move, well, that looks broken as well. And in some ways, well, it isn't 100% well, neither this or your body. Absolutely. And there needs to be an element of healing to happen. But what we don't talk about enough is this is not who we are in entirety. That there is other aspect to us who we are that can be broken. That is the it's that spark that you talk about. It's that light. It is just a light. And sometimes it just gets a little bit dimmed and we can't hear it. And it's our guiding system to kind of guide us. It's our individual kind of moment to moment kind of guide. And this is the bit we don't talk about. And I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. I think it's the most important thing to know about.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, we didn't know about it, but we actually did. Like both of us actually did, but we've forgotten. As children, we just, well, and as adults, we know stuff, right? We just know stuff. It will come into our mind. Oh, we need to phone somebody, or in an emergency, we know what to do. Yeah. So we kind of have a sense of that. We know that there's this part of us that just kind of knows something, whether we call it intuition, whether we call it wisdom, knowing, whatever we want to call it. But there's a part of us that we know is there, but we absolutely dismiss.
Yeah,
like definitely. We might get a sense that eating a particular food doesn't agree with us, but because it's a food that's prevalent in our society, we ignore the feeling that maybe it's not that great, and we eat it anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas kids, and I've talked about this before in a previous podcast, what I find really fascinating is that often children will reject certain foods, and as parents we're like, no, you've got to eat this. You must eat it. We've been told that you have to have
it.
Yeah, do whatever we can to get them to eat this particular food that we've been told they must eat. And it's like, well, perhaps they know.
Yeah.
Perhaps their knowing knows something that we don't know, that is actually not that good for their particular body. But we override it, and we learn from a young age to override that.
Yes.
What we're talking about is reconnecting to that.
Yes, fantastic. I love it. And I love it absolutely, because you're right. At some point, I think the balance of where we operate from, i.e. from our own individual knowing, or, I suppose the wisdom that runs the show, we kind of, I suppose, through our conditioning, we go to school, it looks like our information and knowledge comes from being taught what is good, what's not. But what it is really is what we get told that is out of date. Very soon it can be out of date. It can be so out of date because, but also it might not apply to different makeups of, our individualness that we have either. So to me, it makes absolutely no sense to have something prescriptive. And we are only just starting to discover the impact of that. Like, it's mind-blowing to me that so much conditioning that we have, old way of thinking how things work, that it's just mind-blowing. And it's really hard to kind of go with maybe the niggly thought that you have that is trying to guide you and question something, because you'll come across all your family or friends and colleagues. They were trying to say, but no, stay here, stay in this knowing what we know about it. Yeah. Even though it is just a speckle or one drop in a massive ocean of what's available to us. And we do that to sort of need to feel safe in what we know. Through this journey I have been, and I'm sure, Vicky, for you too, is I had to step away from that. I knew what I knew wasn't helping. I knew I had to go beyond what I know to find some riches, to find gold, that, or ways of being, or things that are going to be good for me or not good for me, beyond what I know and everybody's telling me. So and it's amazing, because when I have a conversation, let's say like with you or people in a community that I have been learning about, my mind body connection and what's available to us, and what does healing mean, and recently, like I say, our holistic healer course, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. I used to think, holistic healers is somebody who is going to be doing magic on me, holistically healing me. And now it looks completely different. We are all holistic healers. We've all have got capacity to holistically heal. But what that means is having to look beyond just separation. Okay, we're just going to work on a mind. Okay, we're just going to work on a body. It's all connected. And this whole availability to us to be guided, to be our own guide to how that's going to look for us individually. That to me is amazing. And to see capacity in all of us for that is beautiful, because as a mom and also coach who speaks to people, I work a lot with young people. So it just gives me goosebumps when they get a sense of that spark in them, that spark that guides them, and to use that a lot more as the navigating tool versus, oh, let me go and ask so-and-so. There's an expert. First of all, our parents are experts. After that, our teachers are experts. After that, there's X, Y, Z. And they do know bits and pieces. But often when we look to an expert, they have lost the sight of the whole system. So to me, it's like bringing it back to seeing there's a network, it's like a network of things that's going on. It's all connected. So if I'm overwhelmed, my shoulders go up, it gets tighter. makes complete sense. Some get our butterflies in our tummies. Yes, that is all connected. And sometimes with expertise, we separate it too much.
Yes, yeah. We go and see a specialist for
Yeah.
our gastro system, or we go
Yes.
to a specialist for our mind because
Yeah.
we need help with our mental health. Or, and like you
Yeah.
say, it's seeing that there is no separation. Like, one of the biggest things for me was, and I knew it. The thing is, I knew it, but it kind of been erased from me. The fact that my body feels my thinking.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yes.
that it's so simple, and
Yeah.
yet I didn't intellectually know that. I knew it, but
Yes.
it wasn't what I was being told.
Yeah.
But we can see it for ourselves so clearly. Like, night after night, I'd lie in bed and I would work myself into a frenzy of anxiety, of fear, of worry. And I felt it in my body. My body wouldn't be able to sleep. So when I was at university, I had my first real experience of this, where I was really struggling with exams and the pressure of exams. And I had, and I believed that the exam was creating my anxiety, that this thing that was looming in front of me was terrifying, and I was going to fail, and what that would mean. And I would basically, my head was absolutely crazy with it all. And my body responded by raising my heart rate to an insane level, like absolute insane level. And the consequence of that was, obviously all the adrenaline running through me, was I could not sleep at all.
Yeah.
Well, of course not, because my body was responding.
Yes, of
To
course.
my mind, and it knew no different. Like, there was a threat in my mind,
Yeah.
and my body was responding to the threat. There was no real threat, but
Yeah.
my mind couldn't tell the difference between a real and a made up threat. So I would lie there and I could feel my heart just literally like exploding out of my chest. And thankfully, I was, the only thing I knew to do was to go and see a doctor. And after seeing one and then being extremely unhelpful, I knew to go home, to be looked after by my mum. And my mum took me to her GP, and they prescribed me beta blockers, which brought my adrenaline levels down. And it was kind of, and that's a really great example of when, I needed some intervention, and it happened to be medical drug intervention. And in that intervention, in the bringing down of my adrenaline levels, I was able to sleep, which lowered my levels of anxiety and my stress and my fear. So I was able to kind of my body was then able to reset back down again.
Yes. Yeah.
But I've known for such a long time that my mind has an impact on my body.
I know.
And yet I have spent years and years and years of my life struggling with physical things that were clearly relating to my mind, and never seeing never seeing the how busy my mind was.
Yeah. Yes, because absolutely, totally. And again, all that comes, isn't it? You should be this way, you should be that way. It should come in for that, from like, as a mum, this what motherhood should look like. This is what should be able to do. And it's all kind of fairy tale sort of stuff. And there's no, you almost kind of miss the real stuff, especially if you kind of isolate yourself from people, and you don't really hear what's going on for others. It's so easy and to kind of get lost in that story of it. And then people then confirm, of course, people, like for you, when you talk about exams, of course you'd get stressed about exams. That's normal to get stressed. Well, no, no, it doesn't have to be normal. It doesn't have to be. And I had a wonderful story with my daughter. She really struggled, in her primary school with not, when she doesn't get things right, she would kind of like, freeze, and she wouldn't put her hand up, and unless she's 100% sure, there's no way I'm speaking out, kind of business. And I feel so lucky to know what I know. And I said, well, fundamentally that's not possible. And like, you can't, I know it looks to you like, doing it's clock going on and you having to do like test. It's why you are kind of whatever. But I was able to see that that's where she was going to go with it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Well, let's see where your reality comes from. And we've spent some time working around that and conversing and putting her in situations where, you know, she had to grow out of it. Like, you know, I've noticed how often we as parents want to protect our children and ourselves from feeling certain feelings like discomfort or feeling anxious about something or whatever. We kind of, oh no, well, that's not a nice feeling. Oh, do you want something to, you know, like sweet or piece of cake or whatever to make you feel better? We're constantly conditioning them to the fact that something externally can change our state of mind, which is fundamentally, we don't work like that.
And that certain feelings are bad, that we shouldn't.
And that certain feelings are bad. So yeah, but what I got to see, those very feelings, especially when they come in, you know, from nowhere a little bit like that, they are, that's where we learn, that's where we grow. That's where we got to see that's our invitation to see that there's no reality to this, you know, get to see how we work, you know. And instead, unfortunately, we tend to kind of confirm, oh yeah, there is something to be worried about, exam or bullying at school. Oh, you know, where somebody's being verbally, but it's bullying, or even just says unkind word. My kids would say to each other, oh, my brother said something horrible to him. I said, well, okay, yeah, you know. So it's up to you, it's really up to you how you interpret that, you know, and that's where the change can happen. So you can, for years, think, oh, if somebody says this word, that really hurts me.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's not, doesn't work like that. So when you know that actually, oh, it's the way I think about what that word means and how that and then transfers, you know, goes in my body and all of that. Oh, okay. So then this is where the change happens. This is where we call it healing. I mean, it's irrelevant, but it's growth. It's growing and knowing to see that, oh, well, it doesn't work like that. I've been taking this seriously. It's nothing to do with them. And that was massive for me to see with my children, where I thought their craziness and running around was to cause my exhaustion. I got to see, oh my God, it's nothing to do with them. I was literally buying into that. And when I remember so vividly this day, 5 o'clock witching hour on our landing, I was like, oh my God, but this doesn't work like that. And they were all, you know, like a little Tasmanian devils going around. And I just,
it's making me stressed.
And I just sat there like, oh my God, there was complete sudden separation of this experience, what looked like was coming from them, to like, they completely disappeared. And there was such a quietness. And I was just like, there was no noise. I couldn't hear any noise. It was just like, I was almost having like an out-of-body experience. That's what it is. I don't know. I was just like, wow, this is almost a bit weird, because it looked not long ago just completely different. But what was really interesting as that happened, and I just sat there like, wow, this is strange. Their little energies, which would normally react to mine going in, can you stop this? Don't do that. Can you go and do this? The constant direction. They just start slowing down and start settling. So my whole relationship with my children changed. So when I remembered those moments, like, oh, the experience doesn't come from you, I just got quiet. More I got quiet, they got settled. It was that was like a magic. So I end up spending a lot of time on the floor. So I'm not moving until we all calm down, kind of business. But it did mean, you know, I couldn't necessarily book an appointment and go and meet a friend often. And sometimes I'd have to cancel them or whatever, because it was important to me that, okay, well, we just need to learn how to all settle. And we spend a lot of time doing that. So yes, it's been a fascinating.
And in your as we see more that that those things outside of us can't make us feel a particular way, because we all react differently to the same external thing. The more we see that, the less we have to like counter it in our minds, the less we get hyped up and drawn into that way of thinking that it's my fault that they're like this, or and there's the consequences, of course, that our bodies are able to do what they are meant to do,
meant to be doing. Yes, absolutely.
as they are meant to, without interference from our mind.
100%. So the energy started returning to my body. You know, I have taken like, you know, vitamin supplements over time and stuff, and I've noticed even that is not so necessary like I thought it was, perhaps. You know, the exercise I do these days, it's not very much either. So the idea that you need to do a lot to feel strong, it's a bit of a myth there. Interestingly enough, I'm finding. So I do really only one day a week now, which is a strength based. And I think even my trainer is a bit perplexed that it's interesting how you're strong as this and you're doing it once a week, and we used to do it 3 times a week, and and I even did it 5 times a week at one point, but now I'm doing one, and I've got way more, like I've got more energy than I ever had. I feel strong, I can carry, I pick up. So tell me, what's that all about? On a paper, that doesn't equate to what we know it's true, you know, what we believe is true, yet the reality of it is very different. So
because you are responding to your body's needs. That's not what we are, you know, it's not that, right, you must exercise 5 times a week. That's the sort of whatever standard information. But actually, as you're saying, when we start to tune into what we need in that moment, and it will change, right?
And it will change, indeed.
Each week might change.
And that too,
And it's responding to that. What works for me now? Not what I'm told I should be doing, but what I actually need to do. And like you say, from that place, that's when your body can then actually run effectively.
Yes, and recover. You know, like, you know, the muscles are clearly strengthening, and the, you know, the tightness is loosening, dissolving. Yes, it is extraordinary, really. You know, and we know that when we cut ourselves, that we don't have to go and, you know, think our way into healing. Like, it's gonna happen, right? So this energy intelligence that runs through us all goes where it needs to go, and it will have hierarchy list of where we, you know, where it needs to go first and attend to. So of course, so if you can imagine, if our minds are so overwhelmed and in worry and all of that, this is clearly where it's been going, so that it doesn't necessarily flow through the rest of the body as well, and therefore can't maintain it so well. So it's normal to see that you will have aches and pains and tightness and all that. It is, to me, most normal thing to see. That makes complete sense. So yeah, and that changes, and fascinating. It can change literally in a, you know, it can change in a switch, you know, but often enough it takes time to tune in, just listening. And one of our mentors, Rachel, she talks beautifully about listening to your body, and that's really helped me to kind of, okay, how do I learn to listen to my body? And that's what needs to be thought, that not thought, but that needs available for people to talk about. And with my family, I talk to my children about that. So, well, you know, what do you notice about your body? Like, oh, so, you know, what do you notice? What do you think you need? So I'm constantly kind of providing, you know, ask them to ask themselves. And we trust that, like you say, with foods, like children, right? The same. And then slowly our thinking, or that we think they should or shouldn't, is starting to quieten and change for ourselves. So it's a learning, it's full-time learning, like it's never-ending learning about ourselves and what we've got available, but to get a sense that we've got something more available than just our body and our mind, and start playing with that. It's wonderful.
I think that's a beautiful place to end the conversation, and it's worth saying that there is a podcast episode with Rachel Singleton, and yeah, it's a gorgeous conversation of tuning into the body and listening to the body. So if you haven't listened to that, that's well worth listening to. As Ivana said, she's got a beautiful way of talking about it. So yeah. And Ivana, thank you so much for coming along today. Is there any way that you can share your details so that people can get in touch with you if they want to and work with you and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I do have a website. It's rubbish, but there my details are on there. It's ivanaculham.com. And yes, just get in touch, see what's going on. Currently, I do just hold a Wednesday evening 8 p.m. listening space with a friend and colleague, Mariella. It's just for parents to come and touch base and maybe start get a sense of this a little bit, but just show up as you are. Don't let it be like me, trying to hide. Do show up, put your hand up, and join the conversation. We can help each other.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Lovely. Thank you so much
Thank
for coming,
you.
and I will see you very soon.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. Bye. Bye.